important that we just go through this process as you go through the other items. So the reasoning, Honorable Chair, was because we are caught up to make a decision as a country. There is the fuel prices that are going up. And if you look at all the other disruptions that have happened in the past, it is clear that what you are handling is a temporal disruption in the global oil supply chains. And therefore, we have to ask ourselves as Kenya, do we need to make decisions that will be very far-reaching in the medium and long term based on the temporary situation, or can we do something about it so that we have some stability in the medium and long term? And I went to the option of intervention. Interventionist meaning that we do something as Kenya so that we can arrest the future instabilities in terms of all the other parameters of the economy. Secondly, Chair, is that if we let things flow the way they are flowing without any major intervention and without proposing any major interventions, clearly we'll be having inflation figures coming out over the weekend for this month. And for sure, they are likely to be over 7.5% year on year. That is one parameter. If we look at the other issues, for example, other things that are responsive to oil prices increment, which affect everyone, namely, for example, fares. I was with one Kenyan yesterday, and they were telling me that previously, the fares they used to pay from where they live to the place of work is 80 shillings. But out of what is happening in terms of our oil side, in terms of pricing, that has increased now to around 120 shillings, which is a 50% increment. But highly unlikely that you are going to see a downward trend in those variables if oil prices definitely go down as we anticipate. This is a moving target, and this is a moving vehicle. The oil prices for the last 2 years have been very fair to the world at around $60 per barrel. But currently, we are talking about 90. Actually, by the time I was appearing before Budget Committee, which is a day before yesterday, global oil prices were around $91 per barrel. Now we are talking about $88 per barrel as of today. Meaning, for sure, as we have studied in the past, these disruptions happen temporarily. And we are therefore likely to also have the base, which is much lower than the current situation. So the issue is, do we do something about it, or just let the markets determine the fate of Kenyans? And I thought the reason we are elected is to intervene at a time like this. As I go, because I want to go straight to the issues that I have proposed. The current oil prices, as they are in Kenya, super, for example, levies and taxes account for 74 shillings. Margins for the importers and the people that deal with in the oil business, supply chain, their profit margin is around 17 shillings. There are other small fees for transportation and others. So in a country like ours, we have a 74 shillings opportunity plus a 17 shillings opportunity to do something at the pump price. And therefore, I want to dissuade all of us, when we say an oil producing country is a price taker, I agree in terms of landing cost, but there is a lot we can do in terms of our taxes and levies, which account for a lot. In super, we are talking about 74 shillings. In diesel, we are also talking about between 60 and 70 shillings. That is taxes and levies, without actually inputting the margins. If you input the margins, we are talking about over 90 shillings per liter. And that is the basis of my proposal, that to lower the fuel prices now, temporarily, actually my workings are for the next 6 months, we do 4 things. One, we compel the government to lower the margins for the people involved in the oil business, including importers, by 4 shillings. Second is to invoke a change in the VAT of fuel products. From the current 8%, we tax exempt for the next 6 months, and that will give Kenyans reprieve by around 17 shillings and 15 shillings for diesel and super petrol, respectively. The other thing is that we reduce the fuel levy, what we usually call RMLF, road maintenance levy fund. There is a levy we introduced in the year 2024. We can do something about that by revoking it, because the situation has changed. So that will save across the board around 7 shillings. And lastly, is that we go to the PDL and Fuel Stabilization Fund, and we fetch some 3.5 billion shillings, and we give additional subsidies for diesel. In my workings, because I don't want to belabor the point a lot, we are going either by forfeiture of revenue or by actual injection in terms of subsidies. The intervention is costing, because I'm summarizing, in a nutshell, around 48 billion shillings, but that has been adjusted to the response on the demand side, because higher prices will definitely lead to a lower demand of the products that I'm talking about. And my workings in this proposal is that Kenya consumes around 240 million liters of diesel a month and around 185 million liters of diesel, of super petrol. Those are my workings. Maybe the other thing I can add is that I have been able to check at what other countries have done in terms of the responses. And this has been also informed by their level of taxation and levies even before the disruption happened. And I feel we are in a good space to adopt my proposals. Because, as I said before, we can just say we need revenue, which is okay. We need revenue as government. But revenue always comes at a cost. At what cost to the entire economy? And therefore, I want to persuade all of us that we go on the route of being interventionists other than being laissez-faire, so that we can do much more than has been done. There are some few interventions that have already been done, but I feel those are not far-reaching enough. As we check even in our VAT Act, you realize that my proposal, to a large extent, some of the things I'm proposing are not outliers in history and comparisons. There is a time you are at where I'm proposing. Before 2024, we were at the level of RMLF that I'm proposing we go back to. Previously, in our country, we have been at the base I'm talking about in terms of VAT. So we can actually benchmark within ourselves as Kenya, that we have been there before. So what we are asking for is not an outlier, even when we compare various situations in history. The other thing is that Parliament, the reason why we are elected and we don't meet, we meet in perpetuity, is because the reasoning, because the economy also have intelligence, just as the country, is that situations change. And the more the reason we are elected as members of Parliament, as permanent members. Permanent means in the term of 5 years, we don't meet, let's say, once a year. It is for a situation like this, that when we realize that there is a situation that needs us to change laws, then we invoke that responsibility. And that is what I'm tapping into. However, lastly, Chair, because I would also want to leave all the other minutes for members to interact in terms of questions, I have to say that I envied the church when they were here, because on this side of stakeholders, the church came in unison, from Anglican Church to evangelicals. I am feeling very lonely here being just alone. And I am requesting the members of parliament, you are talking the same language. There is only too much one member of parliament can do. And I say so because, Chairman, I have appeared before this committee before, earlier this year. And that issue that we were proposing back then was about Safaricom. 15% GOK sale of Safaricom. And as I said before this committee, is that some of the alternatives and proposals we give are not just concrete opposition sentiments, the way you just become concrete and immovable. We give them as alternatives. And we don't give them because we know better than anyone else. It is because out of many opinions, the best may emerge. And I am glad even after appearing on the issue of Safaricom, which again, I was all alone. The court actually have sided with the exact proposals that I brought before this committee. And that's the reason GOK has not received the money from the buyers. So even as I come to give these proposals today, I am not coming here because I am different. I am coming here because I am one of you as members of parliament, and I am one of the Kenyans. I commend Kenyans for the many proposals they sent me on WhatsApp and messages, and I request my colleagues to also join that clarion call by Kenyans that we do something about lowering the fuel prices. If we adopt all the proposals that I gave, namely reduction of margins, may not be the domain of this committee. Secondly is subsidies. That's not the domain of this committee either. Lowering VAT and tax exempting fuel products, which is a domain of this committee, and lowering levies, which is a domain of this committee. If we do that and we pass it in parliament, the following day, super petrol prices will be 187 shillings in Kenya, and diesel will be around 189 shillings. And I believe from Turkana, Dr. Aliko, to Molo, Chairman, the people of Molo, to the people of Imenti, I mean, they all want those kind of prices in terms of lower prices. Chairman, I submit, and I want to thank you and all the members.
I thank you very much, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, my colleague from years back. You know, sometimes I miss when, because now I used to do the bad job of raising revenue and used to do the easy job of sharing. That time you're not as vocal as you are now. But anyway, that is one under the bridge. So we have agreed, you know, at least you have the advantage of presenting at the floor of the House. So we've agreed with members that we will minimize the interactions so that we can actually debate and give this opportunity to stakeholders that will not have a chance to speak this at the floor of the House. But I'd like to just say two things that you may not have mentioned. The RMLF that you're posing to reduce, I want you to pull up that schedule of RMLF. So it's important that Kenyans know this levy that we call RMLF, what does it go to do? This is the money that goes to repair our rural roads across the country. And there, I think that print is too small. You may want to. Just for the budget of 24-25 alone, there was 3.68 billion shillings that went across the 47 different counties in the country to repair the roads so that the people in Turi, in my constituency, are able to take their produce from the farm to the market. And this money is one of the funds that are equitably distributed across the country. Just to give an example, Mombasa received 45 million shillings. Where you come from, Muranga received, how much is Muranga? 94.7 million shillings. Where I come from, Nakuru received 183 million shillings. Nairobi received 120 million shillings. So which would mean, essentially, that if we reduce RMLF, the truth is, consequently, we will have to reduce the money that goes to repair our roads, our constituencies. That's number one. Number two, on the issue of exempts, okay, and again, RMLF is not the purview of this committee, but reduction of VATs. If we go with your proposal, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, I want to tell you for a fact, if the current VAT on fuel is 8%, so if we take VAT on fuel from exempt, or from 8% standard rate to exempt, that will actually increase the price of fuel. Why am I saying that? How does exempt status work? If the current rate is 8%, so it means that importers or aggregators or whoever is involved in the fuel business will go and claim input VAT. But if we make fuel exempt, that would mean they will not be able to claim their input VAT. And that would mean that they will have to transfer the cost of their input to the consumers. So if we would take your proposal number C, reduce VAT by 8% and classify the products as exempt, all the professionals here will tell you the price of fuel would actually go up and not reduce. Anyway, those are the only two things I needed to clarify. You don't have to respond, but if you feel that you need to, you have the opportunity, and then we'll go to the next golden.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I want to start with the latter one, because that's not correct. The current VAT regime in terms of fuel pricing is that they are vatable. We move from vatable to exempt to zero. Anything vatable is definitely more expensive than exempt. And anything exempt is definitely more expensive than zero. Let me finish, Chair. Through this committee, we processed a reduction of tax from 16% to 8% last month. Does it mean that this committee actually wanted the fuel prices to increase? Secondly, the other question, RMLF, what you have highlighted here is fine, but it's not in entirety. It is superficial. It is superficial in this manner. What you projected is what goes to counties. But the roads budget comes into three streams. One stream is GOK funded. The second one is externally funded budget. The third one is recurrent. And recurrent is basically what we call RMLF. And in those three budgets, they are almost actually equal. I appeared before the budget committee. And my proposal is not taking money away from the roads. It is actually rearranging. I already have on the expenditure side proposed cuts of over 100 billion shillings, which some of them will be moving from the stream of road in terms of maintenance into GOK funded, still adding up into roads. But if you check in my proposals, Chair, I have also actually included excise duty as part of my proposals. I never highlighted it a lot because it's a fallback position. It's fallback because of this. I have attended in such a committee, and the argument is the 7 shillings has been securitized. And my argument back is, who said it's securitized? Does this committee has any details? Have you ever seen any document anywhere in this committee or parliament? That is why I had a fallback position, just in case this other issue is brought forth. Again, the projection you give there, Chair, is for the money that goes into our counties. Money still used to flow in our counties and constituencies before 2024. Remember, I'm not scrapping RMLF. I'm only reducing by 7 shillings, going to what was there in the year 2024. And after reduction, we'll be adding on the other side of GOK funded budget.
Thank you very much. You know, Parliament is we agree to disagree. And now I want to persuade you, if you strongly feel that the reduction in the budget that you have submitted to the budget committee, that once the debate comes to Parliament, you'll be able to convince the rest of your colleagues, the rest of us, to agree with your proposals. But we thank you for taking your time to come and present for this committee and doing the presentation that you've done. Thank you and have a good afternoon. Our next stakeholder is ATC. We'll have ABM. I'm told you'll be presenting jointly as PwC. Please, you have the floor.